Hello and welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoy the story. This was written by a real human. So please leave a like if you enjoy it to help the channel and subscribe for future content. It's free. Links to the story and Patreon will be in the description. Please go and support the author. Any support is always appreciated. If a human narrator would like to narrate my stories, please contact me. I write these in my spare time between work and my children and just don't have the time or quiet space to narrate them myself. I hope you can understand. Thanks for your time, and again I hope you enjoy the story. And for the love of everything YouTube, this is literature, so please leave my channel alone. Let's get into it, folks. In total, we were able to bring 74 US life pods to safety, my lady, Lori said, flipping through her data pad to double-check their numbers. 32 from the Queen's Resolve, 17 from the Thermidor, 9 from civilian vessels caught in the fighting, and the rest from the reservists and civil defense personnel who manned the orbital forts and shuttles. She took a breath. It had been a long day already. Thankfully Orions could imbibe coffee like their human compatriots. We have been receiving wounded at a steady rate from the Mars incursion. Unfortunately, we also received some viril in that weird cocoon. She shrugged. Our security and FRIM's Marines are stationed with them and remain on high alert, as ordered. She finished the report. Gina had been right. She had told her that the only way not to feel helpless was for her to roll up her sleeves and do what you can do. Lori had understood, and after her mother-in-law assured her she more than had the children covered, had rushed to help the other Orions working hard to assist their allies fighting valiantly in the void of space, for all Sol system. Good, Tara said. Have Commander Overn report his findings as soon as he returns. I want to know why the President has refused my request. She had been furious when President Owlin had refused to allow her to accompany him to meet this Captain Barbara Thornton on Earth. The woman and her crew deserved to be thanked just like everyone else had been. More so by Tara's line of thinking. After all, she had never been thanked personally by Tara for even allowing them through that FTL gate. The Regent had been taking great pains to contact the surviving ships and crews to relay the Orion's thanks. After all, FRIM habitat was the only home the Orions had currently, and it wasn't like it could be moved easily out of the Sol system. Except for the refuge and her valiant crew, which included roughly half its numbers as Orions. Lori watched her Regent flick a shredded stress ball into the waste bin and withdraw another from her desk. Her sharp red-painted nails extending and retracting as she continued to fume over the President's abrupt refusal to take her with him. As you command, my lady. She made the note and set a reminder in her data chit. We also received this request. Unfortunately, I was on maternity leave, my lady, so I am not quite sure when it arrived. She handed a rolled parchment she had found sitting on her desk when she had arrived. The seal stamped into the wax was the tri-crowns of the Orion hegemony bisected by two Tuardanium rapiers in the shape of a V. The insignia was only used by Vat's ruling family, the Liams. Regent Jacqueliam of Vat still wants me to step down as Regent of FRIM? Tara asked, her voice holding a dangerous edge to it. Lori handed the scroll to her Regent and stepped back, averting her eyes. I don't know, my lady. It has the noble family's insignia and is addressed to you. Lori bowed slightly, waiting for her Regent to read the message. Antiquated as it was, it must have been important for Regent Jacqueliam to go through the trouble of procuring a roll of parchment to write it on. Oh. Tara's voice seemed to change from furious to curious as she broke the seal and began to read its flowing Orion script. Oh my, this was unexpected. Lori waited patiently for her Regent to continue. She was surprised as Tara handed her the scroll and said, Read it, tell me your thoughts, and be honest with me, please, Lori. Lori took it and carefully read its contents twice before audibly sighing. Well, my lady, it looks like we're not going to have a choice. FRIM habitat is the designated home of the Orion species now, as stated in the agreement you signed with the Senate on behalf of Farsee's refugees, and you the acting Regent of FRIM. She swallowed hard as she read the next part. And because of this, and your diligent work to ensure our people's future, I, Regent Jacqueliam, have no other option but to recognize you, Regent Tara of FRIM, as the new matriarch. Lori looked up in surprise as she finished. Will be arriving tomorrow to recognize you formally as such, and she will be bringing the rest of the Orion refugees with her. All of them. Tara had a wary look now, her eyelids half closed, her green eyes flashing in the light as she shifted in her chair. All right, have Durrell prepare a small welcoming ceremony, and get some help finding space for some of the new Orion refugees. It took them a long time to reach us. Start with willing Den sisters to take in those Orions who have no one, those who have family prioritize the empty living quarters. Talk to Mitchell and see if we can convert sections 4J to 4P into new living quarters. If I remember the last briefing, he had said the mining crews had nearly completely harvested the ore from its veins. Lori nodded. She remembered that report. She had been surprised they had made such progress in the upper levels of the asteroid so quickly. But Regent Terra had been pushing everyone to work hard to make their new home the best they could make it. And so far the support from the Orions had been tremendous. Lori couldn't ever remember their people working so hard toward a single goal: survival and proving their worth to the other U.S. Alliance member species, especially the humans who had so graciously given them refuge in their Cradle system. Not many species would have. And the surviving Orions remembered all the supposed allies that had refused to help them when they had found themselves in need. There would be many more survivors if that had been the case. She made the note in her data chit with a "Yes, my lady," and waited for her regent to continue. "Once they arrive, I want all the nobles assembled," Terra said. Lori grimaced but nodded. Back on Farsi, that would mean Regent Terra was about to commit a purge of the upper classes to ensure loyalty through her reign as monarch. But Lori also knew they didn't have the number of people they once had. The loss to their genetic pool could be catastrophic at this time. "I also want a list of potential nobles. The criteria needs to be they need to have achieved something for the Orion people, not for themselves." Terra finished. She raised her left hand, dismissing Lori with a sincere, "Thank you, Lori. I'm so glad you could help today. I'm afraid I've been running the other retainers ragged lately." "My lady, it's my pleasure to serve you and our people," Lori responded, blushing at the sincerity in her monarch's voice. "I needed to help. Somehow. I couldn't just watch anymore." "Are you sure those cubs are fine?" Terra asked. She had acted like an overprotective aunt since the children's births. She had even been the one to commission a craftsman on Earth to make the custom wooden blocks with both English and Orion letters painted on them. Tim had called it a magnificent gift. "They are with their father's matriarch, my lady. I'm sure they're just fine." She smiled. She didn't think there was much of anything Gina couldn't handle, and her grandchildren's well-being seemed to be at the very top of her list. "Well, just don't overdo it, Lori. I appreciate you coming in to help, but you're technically still on maternity leave." She gave Lori a warm smile and Lori made her way out. She went to her desk and sat her datapad down. She picked up the picture of Tim that sat on the corner next to her nameplate and absently rubbed the wooden frame as she looked out the window in her office at the shuttles and corvettes ferrying people from the surface of Mars to Frim. It was the only fully functional medical unit left operational after that big EMP burst. Everything else was pretty much running on antiquated methods. Most of Mars's power stations had been knocked off the grid, and those still active were dealing with overloaded systems. She looked at the view screen tuned into the same Galnet newscast she had been watching in her apartment with Gina. A headline scrolled across the bottom of the screen reading, "Viril invasion thwarted on Mars. Sol system is safe. Victory at Eordirion. Janzal still holds." She sat the picture back down and retrieved the data pad, and activated her personal data chit. "Send a message to Scree. Tell her we need the complete remaining genealogy records of Farsi. All of them." She waited for the sent alert and then continued. "Message Commander Overin. Inform him Regent Terra wishes to know what his investigation turned up as soon as possible." She sighed. The confirmation beeped and she pressed the call contact. Durl on the screen. Might as well get started on the ceremony. As soon as the genealogical files were sent over, they would need to start finding those willing Den sisters. She looked back at the picture of Tim and a thought struck her. How would Tim feel about her taking in one or two Den sisters? Something she would have to ask Gina about later, she decided as she heard Durl's husky feminine voice. "Hello, Lori," she said. "How's those cubs of yours and that handsome cat you married doing?" "Great as far as I know, Durl. Regent Terra needs us too." Jack Jackson had seen a lot of things in his 27 years. Some quite remarkable or unbelievable. But the visions he was getting from Zava were truly fantastical. She was apparently going through some sort of trial in her mind. All of them were if what Gregory had said was true for the rest of the Viril who had suddenly cocooned themselves like Zava and Orlana. They had barely made it through the curtain when it had happened to both of them. "Why is she running through a crystalline cave?" he heard himself ask. "It looks like she's having trouble." "I dunno." Gregory shrugged his shoulders and took another pull off his beer. "But Orlana is there too. Ariel is somewhere else. I sense danger but she's blocking me. I heard Orlana say something about getting to a nexus. Must be trying to do the same thing. They don't seem to be having as difficult a time of it as your Zava seems to be though by what you're saying." "It doesn't worry you at all?" asked Jack. He reached over and covered Roger with his silk blanket. "Well, it does. But worrying about it won't help anyone. And sharing that worry with them while they are going through this probably won't help either. He motioned with his beer bottle at Jack and Zava's children and continued. Try sending her a mental image of them as they are. You might be surprised. He tried it, imprinting the image in his mind and sending it to Zava as well as what he thought was support for her. He hoped it was support and not worry, but he wasn't sure he succeeded. Well, anyways, you look tired, so I'll let you get some rest. The couch is yours. Make yourself at home. I gotta go check on the wounded and make sure the captives are still okay. He stood and turned at the door. I'm glad to see you're doing well, Jackson. I always pegged you for being the family type. I'll see you for breakfast. Catch some rest while you can. He sat the empty bottle on an end table and walked out the door, taking the slug thrower with him. Yeah, like that's going to happen while I have to watch as Zava works her way through this and all I can do is sit here, he said under his breath. He finished his beer and stood to dispose of it, grabbing Gregory's on the way. He passed a small shrine where Gregory's mom was lighting incense around. He could see Zava making her way through what looked like a corridor with many sharp crystalline protrusions. He could feel her carapace scraping them as she worked her way through them. He threw the bottles in the waste bin and made his way to the window. It was dark, and with the electricity in most of the suburbs being spotty at best, this building seemed to be running on a separate power source. So it was dark. The only lights in the distance from this vantage point were from the Viril drop ship. There had been heavy fighting near it shortly after the Viril had gone into their cocoons. They had seen multiple shuttles heading for it a couple of hours ago. The Marines must have secured the area around the ship and called for reinforcements before breaching the hull and engaging the enemy. He could make out flashes of light here and there, and off in the distance, a large fire raged. He hoped that wasn't the forest. He remembered donating credits while he was in school to help plant those much-needed trees. It had been rather easy to warm Mars for the first couple of generations of colonists. The hard part had been getting the actual flora and fauna established. A lot of stewardship had been put into creating all different types of life forms that now called Mars home. Several of them couldn't survive except in certain very specific circumstances unique to the engineered Martian climates. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his father's old service medal, the only thing he had left of his family, and back out the window. He had been a warrior. He looked back into the living room to his plasma caster sitting on the table, then down to his children snuggled up together in a pile. Then to the curtain leading to where Zava's cocoon was. What am I supposed to do? He asked the room. He closed his eyes and was immediately with Zava. Why me? He groaned. Because the Creator deemed you worthy. Came Gregory's mom's clipped tone as if scolding a child. A man does not complain about the fate he has been dealt. A life without struggle has no substance. She pointed at his children. You have been blessed. Though you can't see it now, you have been given a great gift. She turned to walk through the curtain to the room holding the Viril woman and paused at the threshold. You should thank the Creator for what you have and not lament what you lost to get such blessings. But I'm just an old woman. She disappeared, leaving him to think about her words. He didn't know how long he stood there. The gray streaks of morning light had begun spreading across the horizon when Zane started to fuss, and he finally snapped out of it. He picked him up and gently shushed him while bouncing back and forth from foot to foot. Looking into his son's bright blue eyes, suddenly he knew exactly what he needed to do. He sat on the couch, still rocking Zane, who was sucking on his thumb when he closed his eyes again. He had to try to help her, somehow. He didn't even notice he fell asleep. He could see her. She had made it through the crystalline labyrinth, her carapace cut and bruised, orange-colored blood smeared with a reddish clay. Now she stood before a wall of twisting helixes flashing through various light spectrums at seemingly random intervals. The chamber contained a large brazier of fire on one side with oddly colored blue flames and an equal-sized bowl of water. Though it wasn't clear, it was milky for some reason even though he knew it was water. Off to his right, Zava quickly approached the wall, limping, determination etched on her beautiful all-too-human face, and pressed certain parts of the glowing helixes as they lit up. He sensed that she understood the puzzle almost immediately. In only moments she managed to solve it, causing a section of wall to swing open, revealing a very bright room beyond. He could hear many voices whispering. Unfortunately, he couldn't catch what they were saying. Zava looked at the doorway and took a deep breath. He could feel herself forcing her mind to calm down as excitement welled up in her. I will not fail. I am Zava of the Jackson colony. I will embrace my future without resignation or fear. I know my true enemy and she shall not prevail. With that, she charged through the doorway. Jack could feel it. Determination was etched into her very being. She would complete this test, and seize her future with their children and him or die trying. He snapped awake. Gregory was gently shaking his shoulder and full-on sunlight was filtering through the window curtains. Zane still cradled in his arm, head resting on his chest. He immediately looked for Emma, KROSS and Roger. Seeing them crawling around on the floor playing with each other and a small inflated ball, safe and sound by the thoughts he was picking up from them, he relaxed. It's time for some breakfast. Come on, these little ones aren't big enough yet to shovel it in. I know that much at least. He slapped Jack on the back before heading to the kitchen area, throwing a towel over his shoulder as he went. And I figured you wanted to know we've won? Gregory gestured towards the window, but Jack could already hear lots of air traffic outside. Zane stirred and he placed him on the floor with his siblings as he went to retrieve some breakfast. He stopped and looked at the curtained doorway for a moment. He could feel that Zava was alright. He couldn't tell what she was doing, but she was just fine. He looked back at the kids crawling around on the floor and rolling the ball between each other. Let's get some breakfast. He smiled as he walked into Gregory's kitchen. The smell of scrambled eggs had his mouth watering and the kids could most likely eat it at this stage. He would just have to smash them up really well. That didn't take long, he said as Gregory handed him a plate. Wonder who ended up bagging their leader? Well, I heard through the grapevine that we knew the Viril would have some sort of reaction during the attack. It said that at Janzal system it was the only reason they managed to fight them to a stalemate. And only after the Viril affected had been separated from their buddies that hadn't been. Gregory shrugged, scraping a healthy helping of scrambled eggs on Jack's plate. So somebody gave us some good intel. Jack remembered Zava saying something about helping the Alliance in exchange for her assurances under pain of death for her freedom and in extension his, and he caught himself looking at the curtain as he absently sat on Gregory's floor cross-legged, smashing scrambled eggs and feeding them to his kids. He closed his eyes and tried his best to see what she was doing but only got a bright light, so he settled for sending her what he hoped was the equivalent of an all is well message. Thanks for listening. Please leave a like and hit the subscribe button if you enjoyed the story. If you feel generous and want to support the author's work, go visit the Patreon link in the description. Any support is welcome. Until next time.